Riverview, a quaint town tucked away by the river in central Pennsylvania, was renowned for its picturesque landscapes and tight-knit community. The town's heartbeat was its local diner, a place where everyone knew each other and gathered to share stories over mugs of coffee and slices of homemade apple pie. Maggie O'Connor, the owner of the diner, was a fixture of Riverview. In her late 40s, with a warm smile and a welcoming demeanor, Maggie had lived her entire life in the town. Her diner was more than a business, it was a second home for the locals, where they could catch up on gossip, discuss their daily lives, and find solace in familiar faces. Maggie's life revolved around her diner, and she knew the names, faces, and secrets of nearly everyone in Riverview. One of her regular patrons was Alex Carter, a 28-year-old journalist whose ambition and sharp mind made him a standout figure in town. Alex had recently moved to Riverview, eager to uncover stories that would propel his career. He was often found at Maggie's diner, sipping coffee and chatting with her about the latest news and town gossip. Despite his friendly demeanor and unassuming presence, Alex had yet to make a name for himself with a big story. His days were filled with the kind of small-town news that rarely made headlines, but he held out hope that Riverview would offer him the break he needed. Another regular at the diner was Sarah Lawson, a 33-year-old librarian whose love for literature was matched only by her knack for remembering everyone's birthdays. Sarah's reserved nature masked a deep curiosity about the lives of those around her. Her days were spent organizing book readings and helping residents with research, while her evenings often involved quiet walks around town. Recently, Sarah had become close friends with a new arrival in Riverview, Daniel Hayes. Daniel, a 35-year-old handyman with a rugged appearance and a mysterious air, had moved to Riverview under the pretense of seeking a quieter, more peaceful life. His large, thoughtful eyes and unassuming manner intrigued the townsfolk, but his guarded personality sparked a mixture of curiosity and caution. Despite his reluctance to share much about his past, Daniel quickly became a fixture at Maggie's diner, where he engaged in brief but pleasant conversations with the other patrons. The connections between these characters created a delicate web of relationships in the tranquil town of Riverview. Maggie's diner was the nexus where these lives intersected, and it was here that the seemingly ordinary life of the town would soon be disrupted by events that would test its very fabric. As the leaves turned golden and the first hints of autumn began to creep into Riverview, a subtle shift started to take place. The once serene environment became charged with an undercurrent of tension that none of the residents could quite place. Sarah, in particular, seemed increasingly unsettled. Her usually calm demeanor gave way to moments of anxiety and distraction, which did not go unnoticed by her friends and acquaintances. Alex, ever the observant journalist, picked up on Sarah's unease during their conversations at the diner. He often saw her sitting alone, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup, while her mind seemed miles away. One afternoon, noticing the pallor on Sarah's face and the tearful glimmer in her eyes, Alex approached her with concern. "Hey, Sarah," he said gently. "You don't look like yourself today. Everything all right?" Sarah looked up from her cup, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and apprehension. "I'm not sure," she replied quietly. "I've been receiving some strange messages lately. And Daniel, he's been acting so differently." Alex's interest was piqued. "Messages? What kind of messages?" he asked, his journalistic instincts kicking in. "I don't know," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "They're anonymous, and they seem to know things about me that no one should know. It's unsettling. And Daniel, I thought I knew him, but now I'm not so sure." Alex felt a surge of determination. He decided to investigate further, driven by a mix of professional curiosity and personal concern for Sarah. He began by looking into Daniel's background, probing into his past to uncover any hidden details that might explain Sarah's distress. What Alex found was a series of unsettling connections. Daniel's previous residences were marked by mysterious disappearances and unresolved issues. Sarah's emotional turmoil became more apparent as days went by. She would often arrive at the diner with a distant look, her usually bright eyes shadowed by worry. Maggie, ever the caring figure in the community, noticed Sarah's state and reached out to her in private. "Sarah, dear, you know you can talk to me about anything," Maggie said softly. "I've seen you've been having a rough time lately." Sarah hesitated before finally opening up. "I feel like I'm losing control. Daniel's behavior has been so erratic, and I can't shake the feeling that something terrible is about to happen." Maggie listened carefully, her heart heavy with concern. She offered her support and reassured Sarah that the community would rally around her if she needed help. Meanwhile, Alex continued his investigation, delving deeper into Daniel's past and connecting the dots that hinted at a more complex and troubling narrative. The seemingly peaceful life in Riverview was on the brink of unraveling. The close-knit community, once so serene, now found itself grappling with an unsettling mystery. Alex, with his keen investigative mind and dedication to uncovering the truth, was determined to get to the bottom of Sarah's distress and the dark shadows looming over Riverview. The town's tranquility was about to be shattered, and the characters who had once been bound by their ordinary lives were about to face a reality far more chilling than anyone could have anticipated. As the leaves of Riverview began their annual transformation into hues of gold and crimson, an undercurrent of unease crept through the town. The crisp autumn air carried with it a sense of foreboding that seemed to settle over the community. Daniel Hayes, the enigmatic handyman who had quickly become a fixture in Riverview, was now at the center of growing concern. His increasingly frequent and late-night visits to Sarah Lawson's home did not go unnoticed by the observant townsfolk. The whispers grew louder, and speculation about their relationship spread like wildfire. Sarah, whose once serene demeanor had given way to visible distress, was often seen with a troubled look on her face. Her friends and acquaintances noticed that she had become more withdrawn, her usually vibrant presence diminished by an air of unease. It wasn't long before the gossip reached Alex Carter, the ambitious young journalist who had made Riverview his home in pursuit of a story that would catapult him into the limelight. One crisp afternoon, Alex was seated at his usual spot in Maggie O'Connor's diner, engaged in a casual conversation with the owner. Maggie, a warm and nurturing figure, had noticed the change in Sarah and had been trying to offer her support in any way she could. Alex and Maggie chatted about the usual local news when Sarah walked in, her face pale and her eyes red from what appeared to be crying. She shuffled to her regular booth, looking as though she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Alex, sensing the gravity of the situation, couldn't help but feel a pang of concern. He excused himself from Maggie's side and approached Sarah's booth, his tone gentle and filled with empathy. "Hey Sarah," he said softly, "everything okay?" Sarah looked up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "I don't know who to trust anymore," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I've been receiving these strange messages, and Daniel, he's been acting so differently." Alex's investigative instincts kicked in. He had noticed the peculiar dynamics between Sarah and Daniel and had been piecing together the fragments of their interactions. Sarah's distress was palpable, and Alex felt a surge of determination to uncover the truth behind her fears. Determined to get to the bottom of the situation, Alex decided to dig deeper into Daniel's background. His investigation led him to a series of unsettling discoveries about the handyman's past. He began by examining Daniel's previous residences, uncovering a pattern of mysterious disappearances and unresolved issues that seemed to follow him wherever he went. One particularly troubling revelation was the disappearance of a woman named Emily Turner, who had been romantically involved with Daniel in his former town. Emily had vanished under suspicious circumstances, and despite an extensive investigation, her case remained unsolved. Alex's research uncovered that Daniel had been a key figure in Emily's life just before her disappearance. The connections were chilling, and Alex couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease that accompanied these findings. Alex's investigation also revealed that Daniel had moved to Riverview shortly after Emily's disappearance, seemingly seeking refuge in the quiet town. His arrival coincided with a series of unsettling events in Riverview, and Alex began to suspect that Daniel's past might be catching up with him. The situation escalated when Sarah confided in Alex about the nature of the messages she had been receiving. They were ominous and cryptic, hinting at secrets that were being kept from her. The messages made references to her sister, who had disappeared years earlier, and suggested that Daniel might be hiding something crucial about that case. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but Alex knew that he needed more evidence to connect the dots conclusively. He continued to follow Daniel's movements, documenting his late-night visits to Sarah's home and noting any unusual behavior. His investigation also involved interviewing former acquaintances and neighbors of Daniel, trying to piece together a clearer picture of the handyman's past and his connection to Sarah's current distress. As the autumn days grew shorter and the chill in the air deepened, the tension in Riverview became almost palpable. The town's once peaceful atmosphere was now tinged with a sense of dread. The residents, who had always prided themselves on their close-knit community, were now faced with the unsettling reality that something sinister was unfolding right in their midst. Alex's persistence in uncovering the truth put him at the center of a developing crisis. His findings were leading him to believe that Sarah's life was in danger, and he was determined to protect her while exposing the truth about Daniel's past. The investigation had become a race against time, with Alex driven by a sense of urgency to prevent further harm. The crisp autumn evenings brought a haunting clarity to the situation. Alex knew that he was on the verge of uncovering something that could shake Riverview to its core. The combination of Sarah's distress, the ominous messages, and the unsettling details of Daniel's past formed a tangled web of intrigue and danger. As Alex delved deeper, he realized that the shadows lurking in Riverview were darker than anyone had anticipated, and the town's tranquility was hanging by a thread. A week after Sarah Lawson's unsettling confession, Riverview was rocked by a seismic event that shook the heart of the small town. Sarah vanished without a trace, her sudden disappearance sending shockwaves through the community. The once peaceful streets were now filled with frantic townspeople, and the whirring of police vehicles as an immediate search was launched. The serenity of Riverview had been upended, and the quiet town was now a hive of anxious activity. Alex Carter, who had been deeply involved in uncovering the truth about Sarah's distress, felt a profound sense of responsibility. His curiosity had turned into a personal mission, driven by the desire to protect Sarah and unravel the mystery that had enveloped her life. With Sarah gone, Alex's investigation became even more urgent. He began to explore every lead, every clue that might shed light on her disappearance. Alex's breakthrough came when he managed to gain access to Sarah's home. As he meticulously searched through her belongings, he stumbled upon a hidden compartment behind a loose panel in her closet. Inside, he discovered a stack of journals and letters, their yellowed pages hinting at a long history of hidden fears and secrets. His heart raced as he sifted through the documents, hoping to find something that could explain Sarah's sudden and troubling absence. Among the papers, Alex found a diary that appeared to be Sarah's personal journal. As he flipped through the pages, he was confronted with disturbing entries that revealed the depth of Sarah's fear and anxiety. The diary was filled with meticulous records of her interactions with Daniel Hayes, documenting a growing sense of dread and unease. Sarah had written about her belief that Daniel was hiding something crucial, though she could not pinpoint what it was. One entry, dated just a few days before her disappearance, read, "I feel trapped. The more I try to understand Daniel, the more I realize there are layers of secrecy I can't penetrate. I'm scared that he's involved in something far darker than I could have imagined." Why would Daniel do this? Alex muttered to himself as he read the entries, his mind racing to connect the dots. What's really going on? Alex's thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of his phone. It was Maggie O'Connor, the owner of the diner, who had been deeply affected by Sarah's disappearance. Maggie's voice was filled with concern as she spoke. "Alex, I've been thinking about Sarah," Maggie said. "I know you're working on this, but I want to help. You can use the diner as your base of operations. We've got a back room that's quiet and private. I want to do everything I can to help find her." Alex was grateful for Maggie's offer. Her diner had always been a place of refuge and comfort, and it now provided a strategic location for him to organize his investigation. With Maggie's help, Alex set up a small command center in the back room of the diner. He spread out the journals and letters, attempting to piece together any information that might lead to Sarah. As Alex pored over the evidence, he began to uncover unsettling connections between Daniel Hayes and Sarah's family. His research revealed that Daniel had previously been involved in a relationship with Sarah's sister, Emily Lawson, who had mysteriously disappeared several years earlier. Emily's case had gone cold, but Alex discovered that the circumstances of her disappearance bore striking similarities to Sarah's current situation. Daniel's history was becoming increasingly tangled with Sarah's, and the connection suggested a more sinister motive behind his presence in Riverview. The more Alex investigated, the clearer it became that Daniel's past was not just a series of unfortunate events, but part of a larger, more troubling pattern. One of the letters Alex found was from Sarah's sister, Emily. It was a heartfelt note, revealing her fear and suspicion about Daniel. The letter suggested that Emily had been trying to break away from Daniel but had feared for her safety. The tone of the letter was urgent and desperate, and it concluded with a chilling statement: "If anything happens to me, look to Daniel. He's hiding something." Alex's investigation into Daniel's past became a deep dive into a web of lies and deceit. He interviewed former acquaintances and neighbors, uncovering a trail of troubled relationships and unresolved conflicts. It became evident that Daniel had been attempting to escape from his past, but his efforts to lay low had only drawn more attention to him. The discovery of the connections between Daniel and Sarah's sister was a turning point in the investigation. Alex realized that Daniel's arrival in Riverview was no mere coincidence but part of a calculated attempt to distance himself from his dark history. The town's serene facade had concealed a web of deceit and danger that was now coming to light. As Alex continued his investigation, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was getting closer to uncovering a chilling truth. Sarah's disappearance was not just a random event but a crucial piece of a larger puzzle that involved Daniel's hidden past and the unresolved case of Emily Lawson. The town of Riverview, once a symbol of tranquility, was now at the center of a dark and unfolding mystery. Alex knew that time was of the essence. With Sarah still missing and the shadows of Daniel's past growing ever darker, He was determined to bring the truth to light and ensure that justice was served. The quiet town was no longer the safe haven it had once been. It was now a battleground for uncovering secrets and seeking answers. The investigation into Sarah Lawson's disappearance reached its dramatic climax on a cold, moonlit evening. Alex Carter, who had been tirelessly pursuing leads and piecing together the puzzle of Sarah's vanishing, received an anonymous tip that would prove to be a turning point. The caller's voice was distorted, but the message was clear. Check the old cabin on the edge of town. You'll find what you're looking for. Driven by a sense of urgency, Alex made his way to the abandoned cabin, a dilapidated structure that had long been forgotten by the townspeople. The cold wind howled through the trees as Alex approached the cabin, his breath visible in the chilly night air. With a mixture of dread and determination, he pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside. The interior of the cabin was dimly lit by the faint glow of the moon filtering through the cracked windows. The musty smell of decay filled the air, but Alex's focus was on the sight before him. In the corner of the room, bound to a chair with ropes, was Sarah Lawson. Her eyes widened with a mix of relief and fear as Alex approached. "Sarah," Alex exclaimed, rushing to her side. "You're alive. I'm here to help." Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke. "Alex, thank God you found me. I didn't think anyone would come." With careful movements, Alex began to untie Sarah, his hands working quickly but gently to free her from her restraints. As the ropes fell away, Sarah slumped forward, her exhaustion and fear evident. Once she was free, Alex helped her to her feet and led her to a safer corner of the cabin. "Tell me what happened," Alex urged, his voice filled with concern. Sarah took a deep breath, her hands shaking as she began to recount her harrowing experience. "Daniel has been manipulating me for weeks. He used threats and psychological tactics to control me, making me feel like I was losing my mind. I thought I was going crazy." Alex listened intently, his heart aching as Sarah continued. "Daniel was terrified that I would uncover his past and expose his connection to my sister's disappearance. He moved to Riverview to escape suspicion after Emily vanished, but he never truly left his past behind." Sarah's voice grew more strained as she revealed a chilling detail. Daniel wasn't acting alone. He was being blackmailed by someone from his past, someone with a lot of power. This person used Daniel's fear of exposure to control him, leading to my torment and Emily's disappearance. Alex's mind raced as he processed Sarah's revelations. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and the true extent of the conspiracy was coming into focus. Daniel's manipulative actions and the mysterious figure behind his blackmail created a complex web of deceit and danger. As Sarah finished her account, Alex's resolve hardened. He knew that bringing Daniel to justice was only part of the task. The powerful individual who had orchestrated the blackmail needed to be identified and held accountable. With Sarah safely in his care, Alex contacted the authorities and led them to the cabin. The police arrived swiftly, and Daniel Hayes was apprehended without resistance. The arrest was a significant relief for the town of Riverview, but the true impact of the case was still unfolding. The revelation of Daniel's blackmail and his connection to Sarah's sister cast a long shadow over the town. Riverview, once a symbol of tranquility, was now a place grappling with the dark truths that had emerged. The community was left to come to terms with the traumatic events that had unfolded and to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. Maggie O'Connor, who had supported Alex throughout the investigation, was a pillar of strength for the townspeople. The diner, once a haven of comfort, now became a gathering place for those seeking solace and support. Maggie's unwavering dedication to helping others provided a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. As the town began to process the aftermath of the case, Alex's investigation was hailed as a courageous effort that had brought justice to light. The arrest of Daniel Hayes was a significant step towards closure, but the impact on the community was profound. Riverview had faced a harrowing ordeal, and the scars left by the events would take time to heal. Alex's work was far from over. The powerful figure behind the blackmail remained elusive, and the investigation into their role was ongoing. The darkness that had briefly overshadowed Riverview served as a stark reminder that even in the quietest places, shadows could lurk just beneath the surface. The story of Sarah Lawson's disappearance and the uncovering of Daniel Hayes' past left a lasting impression on Riverview. The town's residents were forced to confront the reality that their peaceful existence had been disrupted by a complex and chilling conspiracy. As they moved forward, they carried with them the lessons learned from the ordeal and the hope that, despite the darkness, they could find a way to rebuild and heal.